Viewers and subscribers, welcome back to Beating the Press podcast. I am your host, Rafa. Now, coming up in today's podcast, we're going to be previewing the two big matches coming up this weekend. First up, Arsenal plays host to Fulham. And then, of course, the big one on Sunday, Newcastle taking on Liverpool. Now, joining me today to preview these two matches, we have returning to the podcast, Sugar Belly.
Greetings, viewers and subscribers.
We also have the Gunners fan, Carey.
Yes, viewers, nice to be back. Say your host run the bar about today and all these things. But we're here. We're here, glad to be back. Looking forward to this weekend.
Welcome, definitely. And of course, early in the season, but big implications, big games. You could say the league is starting to take shape as well. But we're going to kick things off by looking at Arsenal versus Fulham. Now, Kerry, as the Gunners fan, how do you see this one? How do you see both teams entering into this game?
Well, I mean, both teams, we can see that Fulham, they're not playing badly, but I think right now they're just on a little bit around a farm. When it comes to overall class, Arsenal on paper is the better team. But realistically, the past two games were ugly wins. We're grateful for the six points, but there were moments of the games where Arsenal was bossing it around them. But they haven't really showed that they're fully, even let's say at 70-80% as yet. So ugly wins, grateful for the 6 points, but I don't think they're as sharp as they should be, or as they're where they want to be right now. But I think in the next coming game weeks they should be there. Fulham playing well, but at some point in time we expect Fulham to regress, as it were. So I think starting from this weekend, they probably will drop a few points here and there.
Well, I mean, from a Fulham perspective, they've already shown signs of regression, in my opinion. Last week they were battered by Brentford. Of course, they got a narrow win over Everton in their first game. But Sugar Belly, how do you see both teams entering into this one?
Well, entering this game, I'm definitely confident in Arsenal's quality to easily put aside this Fulham side, who I think have been seemingly different from last season. I think that is probably down to them losing Mitrovic now. He has been, if not their most influential player, and he's been there since they have been in the championship. So it's interesting to see how they fill that void there. They have brought in Raul Jimenez, who also I think hasn't looked the same since that horrific injury, but they seem to think that he is what they need. So let's see how he fits in there. And the Arsenal perspective now, as Kerry mentioned earlier, they had some tough wins in the first two games, but playing in front of their home crowd tomorrow in the London Derby, I expect them to attack this Fulham team from the get-go and seal all 3 points.
Yes, you make a good point there that this is in fact a London derby. And, when it comes to derby games, any card can play in a sense. So I wouldn't necessarily write this Fulham team off. They may be a wounded animal currently, but as Kiri mentioned, this Arsenal team is really not firing on all cylinders. In fact, I am seeing where Arteta is somewhat, I would classify it as experimenting with that backline. A player such as Gabriel, who started 73 consecutive games since the start of the season. He has been benched. Kiri, what's going on? I mean, is Gabriel no longer good enough for the Arsenal defense?
I mean, this is what happens when you have quality in abundance. Someone will see the bench from time to time, and it depends on the tactics of the game. I think we haven't seen Arsenal best 11 or rock solid starting 11. We haven't seen them as yet. I think that should pick up next week when they go against Man U. We'll probably see Gabriel back in that lineup. But you have to understand right now, the first three matches, they're expecting to play teams who are coming in with that extreme low block, sitting back, trying to catch on the counter. So I think that is what Partey being in the back line or playing as right back coming in inverted, it kind of puts an extra body in the midfielder to kind of break down the low block. So that is, I think, the tactical reason for it now. But going against Man U next week, I think we should see a stronger, more solid back line, possibly a back four.
Mm. Interesting point there, but many would classify Partey as, a square peg trying to play in a round hole. I mean, Partey isn't really known as a defender. He has made his mark in midfield. Is it a case where Arteta is forcing him into the team as a way of not dropping him with the likes of Rice coming in and possibly taking his position there in midfield, Sugar Belly?
Well, that's not my opinion. I think Partey has shown previously in his career that he can fill in at that right back role from his Atletico Madrid days. So I think that is one of the things Arteta is grabbing at, the
Mm.
versatility of the player. I guess as Gary mentioned of him playing an inverted role, it makes a lot of sense seeing that he will come in and slot into that midfield role when Arsenal are in possession, giving them an extra body in an era where Partey should feel more comfortable as opposed to near to the touchline possibly. So maybe that's one way of mitigating his deficiencies at the right back era. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. But I think also one thing to point out is how excellent Ben White was at that role last
Yeah,
season.
Ben
And
Blanco.
yeah, we have seen him play at centre back so far. So it's a very big question for Arteta in terms of what he will do going forward in that role. Definitely.
You raise a very good point there, Sugar Belly. It will be very interesting to watch how this Arsenal situation unfold. Will he have the man management skills to keep everyone happy in that squad, especially when some of the players come back from injury, the likes of a Timber or even Zinchenko, who has been carrying a knock since the start of the season. Luckily, Tamiyasu was given a red card in the last game, so he's unavailable for this one. So it should make the selection headache a bit less. But I am keeping a close eye on how the situation evolves because I'm sure Gabriel won't be too happy if he sees the bench again in this fixture. So it would be very interesting to see how that Arsenal dressing room gets on. But from a tactical point of view, Kiri, how do you see this Fulham team lining up and also the Arsenal team? What's your call for the starting 11s?
But I mean, Fulham will be the same as we saw last week. Despite the Brentford trashing, their bench is extremely weak. So, I mean, even if they bring Son in from the bench,
Like a Traore, for example, they recently signed Traore, the speed merchant there. I heard that baby oil prices went up, in London when Traore signed.
but that's the thing. Trier is at Fulham for a reason. He's just not quality at any other team. So he's at Fulham, so still no threat. Trier is going to be the same old, same old. No make
Mm.
a lot of noise. That's basically Traore. With Arsenal now, Zinchenko should possibly start because he came on in the last match. He played several minutes. He's been in training, full day of training he had today. So we can probably expect to see him there. Maybe Gabriel will still be out. So we're not sure on that. Expect the backline with Partey, Ben White, Saliba, and possibly Zinchenko. So I
Oh,
see
but
that.
a quick point there, Kiri. I also saw where Arsenal signed that goalkeeper Raya from the aforementioned Brentford.
Hmm.
Is Ramsdale now looking at being benched similar to Gabriel?
Well,
Because why would Raya make a move like that, where he was a starter at Brentford to now be captain in the bench at Arsenal? I'm not seeing where that makes any sense. So are we looking at
when
Ramsdale being pushed out?
we just saw what happened with Real Madrid the other day. You realize who Real Madrid had to go for? Kepa.
Oh, that solid keeper from Chelsea.
If he was a solid keeper, he still for another day. But it just
Mm,
that an injury can happen at any given moment. And when you're challenging for the title, as Arsenal want to do this season again, when you have an injury, it's not supposed to really pull back your team. Your team's supposed to still be on the same level or even better. So that's the case. If Ramsey goes out, Raya is there, just the same quality. So with that is what Arteta is going for. He's going for a replacement, quality replacement in almost every position right across the starting level. So of course, both keepers will be fighting for the number one spot. That was made clear to both. They both accepted that challenge. So it can go two ways. It can ruffle some feathers, or new transfers can also boost the performance of Ramsdale. So it can also have a positive effect on the team. So we just patiently see what happens. But to me, it doesn't matter as long as we're getting 3 points at the end of the game, all is well.
mm. But Sugar Belly, we know that Marco Silva is no fool. He had a very good season, I would say, last year. And, coming off a loss to Brentford, a win versus Everton, that's one win, one loss. He's not going to go into this game naive. He would have taken notes from how Crystal Palace performed against Arsenal and possibly would be preparing something special for this game. What's your thought from a tactical point of view in terms of this Fulham outfit?
Well, Fulham tactically to me will in this game seek to catch Arsenal on that counter attack. I think we might see the injection of Adama Traore, as you spoke of earlier,
Speed
definitely to
merchant,
cause problems. Definitely, alongside Harry Wilson. Um, I think Andres Pereira has been struggling with a knock as well, so it's interesting to see who starts in that attacking midfield area. I think they will stick with Raul Jimenez up front for now. Um, Defensively, we have seen where Lukic has been playing over Paulinho, which I've found very surprising. So seeing that it's a much bigger game coming up this week, it would be also interesting to see whether or not Marco Silva does some tinkering there and recall his favored Paulinho to the side, which we saw was a staple in that Fulham team last season. I think he earned a lot of transfer interest over the summer, but nothing really materialized for whatever reason. Well, defensively now, Fulham, I think they have seemingly tried to make a solid unit with certain additions. However, I think that's the area that their team still lacks in a big way, where there's not much influence in that backline, in my opinion. There's
Yeah,
no
plus
leadership
Ream is
there.
out with a red card as well.
Definitely.
So
So
I
we
think
all
Bassi
saw
should
Issa
might be
Diop
coming
have
in.
a very poor game last week, and those individual mistakes really cost a lot. So that's one area where I feel Fulham may struggle at with this Arsenal team, who might be constantly pressuring that low block. So that's one way Fulham might win or lose this game, definitely.
Yes, definitely. The Fulham backline is definitely one to look at in terms of the personnel, in the heart of that defense. Bassi, fairly new to the team, bedding in, and of course Diop, formerly of West Ham, and elder statesman Ream is out with a red card. Anthony from the United States should be, holding down the fort there at left back, and Tete on the right. I felt Tete had a fairly good preseason, so it will be interesting to see if he can bring the farm into the season. But defensively, the Fulham team is looking suspect at this moment, and with the attacking prowess of the Sakas, the Martinellis, and to a lesser extent Nketiah, then they might very well be ripe for the picking. But the ball is round, and we'll definitely have to see how this one plays out. But as I said, I have great respect for Silva, and I am sure he will be fashioning a solid game plan. And I don't feel this Fulham team will roll over as they did against Brentford. So I think it will be a tight affair. And I feel teams have somewhat figured out Arsenal to an extent. You're not seeing any big score lines. Teams are hanging in there with them. And if not for some poor refereeing decision in the last game, Fulham, Crystal Palace could have had a penalty with that foul on Eze. And, that game may have ended differently. Rather than a 1-0, it may have been a 1-1 draw. But, we'll see how this one play out. But Kerry, from a score line prediction, what says you for this one?
3-0 Arsenal at home. I think Nketiah will grab a goal.
Mm.
For Havertz, actually.
Do you think Nketiah will get the start in this one? Or we might see him off the bench, with Arteta tinkering like Pep?
No, man, I think Arteta will start Nketiah. It's probably, if anything, Trossard should start, then it would either be Martinelli or Havertz that makes the bench. But I highly doubt Nketiah will. I'm expecting a goal, though, from Nketiah, Havertz, and between Saka and Odegaard.
You think Havertz will no break his ducks for Arsenal? He's looking like a 007 type player.
I don't have him for either a goal or assist. Either one is fine for me.
Some
But
kind of offensive contribution then.
right. But we can't say Havertz has been poor, because if you have checked his stats, especially his dual stats in the midfield, for the both matches that he played, he has won the most duels on the pitch. So you can't really say that he's there doing nothing, because we have seen where he has sat and allowed Odegaard to just have a free roam
Interesting
day. So
stuff there.
and he's right, so he's covering that pitch as well, because he's putting defensive effort. If you notice, sometimes he's kind of back there with Partey, and then the next minute he's up there with Odegaard. So he's really covering the pitch. But we just want either a goal and assist, kind of just to get him in the mood, and as it were, with the team.
Yes, it should definitely be rather fascinating to see if he can, in fact, get on the scoreline, as he have been blanking yet to trouble the back of the net for this Arsenal team. But Sugar Belly, scoreline, what says you?
Well, I expect Arsenal to run out comfortable victors. I'd say personally a 4-1 scoreline from
Hmm.
Burnley, definitely.
That's very comfortable.
Yeah, well,
A 4-1 is very comfortable there, Sugar Belly. Well, for me personally, I am going in the opposite direction. I think this game is going to be very tight, very tactical and very cagey. This is a derby game, Fulham away from home. I'm sure in training this week, Marco Silva would have been drilling them very defensively. That has to be the focus for this game, to get it right from a defensive point of view, and then try to grab something where you can, whether it's from a set piece or on the counter. But I feel it's going to be a tight game. I do believe Fulham will trouble the back of the net as well. A number of factors may come into play, just that psychology of Raya, hovering over Ramsdale's shoulder, in addition to the fact that there has been some disjointedness in the Arsenal backline. This team, this current selection of players are not used to playing with each other game in, game out. This is a whole new tactic that Arteta has been implementing this season. And the last two games, you could see cracks, weaknesses, areas to exploit within that defensive unit. So I do expect Fulham to trouble the back of the net, in one fashion or the other. But I think eventually Arsenal should find a way to win. So for this one, I'm going to go with a 2-1 prediction where Arsenal comes out as the winners. But I feel it will be a very tight, cage game where Fulham will be holding on, but in it, providing some sort of threat on the counter and keeping Arsenal honest and the fans at bay for large extents of the game. Saka, our farm. And of course, penalties now have been taken off him by the captain himself. So, I'm not sure. There's a lot of storylines within this Arsenal dressing room, which I am staying very close to. I'm sure Saka wasn't happy with that fact that the captain, in the last game, pretty much took the penalty off him. I'm sure they may have had a discussion after the game in the dressing room. It would be fascinating to see if there's a penalty in this game, who will actually take it. I'm looking forward to that. But I feel Arsenal should come away 2-1 winners. But the ball is run and the game isn't played on paper. So while Arsenal may have, the big name or the quality players on paper, you still have to go out there. And of course, the Jamaican, Cardova Reed, should be looking to make his mark in this game as well. So it would not surprise me if he gets a goal for this Fulham team and make it a very interesting affair for the fans. But we move Sugar Belly. That's the game on Saturday. We have another big game coming up on Sunday. This time we move to St. James's Park, where Newcastle takes on Liverpool. Carey, this is a big one. How do you see both teams coming into this game?
But I kind of still in shock of your sources of what's happening in the Arsenal dressing room.
Well, as I said, we'll see. We watch closely what happens if they do get another penalty, and we'll see who steps up to the plate and try to dispatch it. But yeah, I'm thinking, uh, I, I'm just feeling that there are some slight underlying stories, some very interesting narratives may come out of that Arsenal team this season. But as
Yeah.
I said, we move. That's another discussion for another day. We we have to move along in our previewing. And of course, as I said, we still have another big game to look at, and that one, Liverpool taking on Newcastle, you know. So let's dive into that one. I mean, Newcastle coming off a defeat from Man City, and of course, Liverpool coming off a win versus Bournemouth. And these are two teams that will be definitely looking to make a push for the top four. And as I said, early in the season, but big implications. Oftentimes we hear of a relegation 6-pointer. This could be a top four 6-pointer in all honesty. So it should be a fascinating game. But Sugar Belly, you're familiar with these two teams. How do you see them going into this fixture?
Well, starting with Newcastle, as I said in previous podcasts, I think they were very excellent during the preseason coming into that first game, which they trashed Aston Villa. But I think they disappointed against Man City by not really taking the game to Man City. So it's interesting to see how they approach this one. Well, for me personally, I'd say them playing at home should make them want to go for the 3 points. Also, seeing that they might not be as afraid of the damage Liverpool could do to them as opposed to a Man City. So maybe they would err less on the side of caution and try to get all 3 points at home. So on the Liverpool hand, I think as somewhat, I think they were lucky to escape with a point in the Chelsea game. However, they showed last week against Bournemouth that they still have a certain grit to even come back and win that game. So it's interesting to see how that Liverpool midfield will cope with that Newcastle midfield, who is just star-studded as opposed to this Liverpool midfield that's rebuilding, so to speak, who I think are really short and defensive-minded options. So it's interesting to see what Klopp will do there. Will he play Trent in that inverted role as we saw him do in the latter stages of last season, or will he bring in the new signing Endo to accompany a Sloboslai and a McAllister, who they have said that his red card was rescinded, so he'll be available for this one. So it's let's see what Klopp does there. Defensively, I think Liverpool are struggling a bit of preseason or same way, but it's I don't know what will happen with this Newcastle attack. I think Harvey Barnes is one to look out for, who could pose Liverpool a lot of problems on the counter attack. So the tactics are one of that tactical battle will be very interesting, and let's see what team Eddie Howe will select.
Fascinating analysis there, Sugar Belly. I must say I am in agreement with much of what you just dissected. Definitely this Liverpool team and especially the midfield is in a rebuild mode. So to me, for this game, it's gonna be a battle of the midfielders, to be honest with you. It's gonna be, in my opinion, Endo, McAllister, and of course, you know, the linchpin, the man that has been getting it done, Sobersley versus the Newcastle Tree, Tonelli, Gimares, and Julinton. It's going to be a fascinating game from a tactical point of view. These are two top coaches that will be looking to go at each other and will be looking to break down each other and go for a win. So it's going to be a fascinating midfield battle, in my opinion. And as you rightly say, being at home, just the fans alone will act as a catalyst for this Newcastle team where they try to push forward. But of course, Liverpool, one of the most deadly and dangerous counter-attacking teams in the league, the likes of Salah, Gakpo, and possibly and Nunes coming off the bench in the latter part of the game could pose or could have a destructive impact on this Newcastle team. But Kerry, what says you? How do you see both teams entering into this game?
Well, I mean, no one fears Nunes. Just to put that out there, he's just surprise bench baller as it is.
Mm,
So that's the thing. I don't think Liverpool will strike that fear into Newcastle because Newcastle at this point know that they're a better team than Liverpool, especially playing at home. It's not like one season where Liverpool were rock solid defensively. We have seen Liverpool leaking in goals from last season up until this point. Van Dijk is not what he used to be. Trent doesn't defend or cannot defend. Either works. So the interesting battle, as I said, would be in the midfield. However, I think Joelinton will probably miss tomorrow's game because he picked up from that Man City game and he was replaced by Longstaff, I think. So I'm not sure if Longstaff will get the nod going into tomorrow's fixture. If Joelinton isn't available. But the battle I'm looking forward for is Almiron. How will he attack that side going against Trent? Almiron can be very slippery. We know Trent isn't the best of defenders. What will Klopp do to try and nullify Almiron, quick feet? So that is something to look forward to. I think that should be an interesting battle there. I think Isak should pose some trouble to your defense, to the Liverpool defense. As I said, Van Dijk isn't what he used to be. He's getting beaten way more easy now. We know Isak, he has the pace to do it. He has the quick turn. So I honestly think Newcastle should be confident going into this match. Although they are confident, they know the danger of Salah, as you said. He's somewhat looking to get in groove for the season. You see him grabbing some goals, assists here and there. So I think they will be cautious but confident.
Cautious but confident. Yes, it should definitely be an interesting decision for Eddie Howe in terms of his approach for this game. In their previous game, I thought he was very cautious, not very adventurous, not very pragmatic. In that case, he was playing away from home against what you could classify as a very strong Manchester City team. This time around, he has the comforts of home playing against, I would say, a very adventurous Liverpool team. Yes, I do agree. Liverpool isn't the best defensive unit and they have been leaking a few goals of late. However, where they lead goals, they usually score at the opposite end. So to me, this will be a shootout. A shootout in terms of who can take their chances the best. I feel this game will have chances because the Newcastle fans won't allow the team to sit back. They will be urging the team forward, and that is where Liverpool comes to life. I'm telling you, Liverpool is one of the better counter-attacking teams, and they have the firepower up front to hurt this Newcastle defense. Newcastle was one of the better defensive teams last season, but we could see a few chinks developing in the armor in the latter half of that season, and of course earlier on in the season as well. So it will be a fascinating game. But Sugar Belly, tactically, how do you see both teams lining up, and are you expecting any significant changes in the starting 11s?
Well, for Liverpool, nothing too significant, just that defensive midfield area where I think Endo might come in, as we said earlier. But
Right,
I
right.
think all will remain the same. For Newcastle, on the other hand, it will be interesting what Eddie Howe does going into this one, as we spoke about in the last podcast. We spoke about uh, Harvey Barnes not starting, or whether or not, what's his name,
Garden.
Anthony Garden will play that area, who seemingly is a more defensive minded attacker, so to speak, in the press or whatever you could consider it as. But Harvey Barnes, is more explosive, and I think he could be useful going against that Liverpool backline, as I mentioned earlier.
Definitely.
Defensively as well, we have seen Newcastle made some signings. So in that left back area where I think Dan Burn has been a bit short-handed in terms of he's not the fastest player going forward, and in this modern football we see where the fullbacks play a vital role going forward. So we might see a Lewis Hall, who is a more naturally left-footed player, play that role. Or we could see introduction for Tino Livramento as well, who they signed from Southampton. A more experienced player as well who could fill in at that role. So that's one area to look at. As well in the midfield, like Kerry mentioned about Joelinton being absent. So it's interesting as again whether or not we'll see a reintroduction of Willock in that midfield area along with Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes. I think Newcastle up front still expect Isak and Almiron to be starting. So Callum Wilson off the bench. So it's just whether or not he goes with a Harvey Barnes or Anthony Gordon there.
But what
So
says you in terms of a scoreline, Sugar Belly? What's the scoreline you're looking at?
mm, I think it will be a very end-to-end game. Seeing the attacking prowess of both teams, I think both teams will be open at the back, so it's who finishes their chances. But I think both sides are capable of doing so. So I am expecting a 3-2 scoreline for Newcastle.
3-2 scoreline for Newcastle. Kiri, what says you? What scoreline can we anticipate in this one?
It's funny enough. 3-2 was floating in my mind as well. But honestly, I think I I would go with 3-2, but I think a 2-2 is more likely to play out.
So you're calling this one a draw then?
Right, 2-2.
To be honest, I am also sitting on the fence for this one to be frank. Uh, I do fear the Liverpool fragilities, to be honest with you, especially playing away from home. However, they are 14 games unbeaten in the EPL currently. They went on a really nice run in the latter half of last season. And at the start of this season, they are still unbeaten. They have drawn against Chelsea. And of course, last week they beat Bournemouth. So while this Liverpool team visually doesn't look very solid, if you follow the numbers, if you check the statistics, they are unbeaten in 14 games and counting. And I do believe they have enough to get something from this game. Can they beat Newcastle? Yes. Can they also lose to Newcastle? Of course. but I feel it's gonna be a midfield battle. Many persons are not familiar with the new signing, Endo, but from a statistical point of view, he was one of the top destroyers in the Bundesliga. So while he may not come with a big name, the statistics, the numbers would support the signing. And if given the opportunity, I feel he can have a tremendous impact on this Liverpool team and on this Liverpool midfield. So to me, the midfield is going to cancel each other out. And I do feel that this one will end in a stalemate. So I'm going to go 1-1 in this one. But I'll be here to watch it on Sunday. And of course, viewers and subscribers, you should definitely tune in for that one. And we'll be back on Monday to break it down, to see what the result was, and to dissect in a review program. But I just like to extend my thanks to Sugar Belly and Carey for passing through and, of course, sharing their thoughts and their opinions. I'm just going to encourage our viewers and subscribers to continue to like the video, continue to share. And of course, if you haven't subscribed as yet, please hit that subscription bell. We are looking to grow the channel and we definitely need your help in doing so. But any final thoughts, Sugar Belly, Carey?
Well, just hoping to see another exciting weekend of football.
What say you, Carey? Any final thoughts before we sign off?
For me personally, just looking for Arsenal to kind of get it together to an extent, to see them more gel on the field, to see them dominate, not just dominating games, but actually putting something on the score sheet to show the domination.
Well, there you have it, viewers and subscribers. Until next time, this is Rafa signing off.